Hello, my love, and welcome back to the Someone Had to Say It podcast. I am so excited to be here. Hi. If you're new to this space, hi, my name is Kylie Nel. I am a business, life, and healing mentor, as well as a trauma-informed energy healer. And I've made it my divine mission in this lifetime to help women heal from their past experiences and come back to claiming the power of being the conscious creators of their own reality. And so, with today's episode, I am very excited to dive into this because this episode came through for me when we were doing the Butterfly Effect Masterclass this week. If you're not sure what that was, this is such a beautiful space. It was so intensely and divinely beautiful. Butterfly Effect Masterclass was an incredible space where I taught about like the foundational principles and the things you really want to focus on in your healing journey, especially to experience the most out of your post-traumatic growth journey. And it was so divine. If you want to catch the replay and like, oh, I'd really love to know what these foundational pieces are, you can hop down to the show notes below. It's a $7 masterclass. Dive in. We have 2 hours of goodness. There's a workbook. There's a meditation afterwards. It was just so divine. But when we were in that masterclass, something that came up as a really deeply divinely channeled message for that space, and it's really stuck with me for the whole of this week thus far, is divinely owning what you bring to the table. When you have full ownership of owning and claiming what you bring to the table, no one can take anything away from you. It is freeing as fuck. It is life-changing. It opens up doors. It feels like someone's literally just taken off the shackles that you've been holding onto, have just taken off the armor you've been holding onto, and you can just run and be free. And so I really want to dive into that today of what does it look like to fully own what you bring to the table and why it's so important, because I do deeply and divinely feel that this is one of the number one blocks that's preventing you from moving forward and from moving on and letting things in the past just actually go and no longer allowing them to have a hold over you and being able to step into your divine sovereign power. So here we go, my loves. So excited. Have a sip of my Sprite Zero. I still drink out of a tin. I don't know if that's a bad thing or not, but something just drinking out of a tin is just, it just works for me. I don't know. But anyway, so here we are in all my goodness. So, my loves, full ownership of what you bring to the table. What does this look like and why does it even fucking matter? Like, if we had to really be honest about it and say it as it is. Because when we do not have full ownership over us, and I'm going to go deep into all the angles of this, so stay with me. If we do not have full ownership over us, we allow things like shame and guilt and resentment and anger, and especially self-doubt to start and really brew and develop within us. I feel very much so that the inner critic is something that breeds over a lack of ownership. Let me explain. When we are able to actually fully own what we bring to the table, it means that you really just have this sense of self of like, I know what I've been through. I know what I've come from. I know the decisions I made. I know where I've messed up. I know where I wasn't in integrity with who I actually wanted to be. I understand why. Like, there is just this full knowing of self. And that full knowing of self actually breeds room for a lot of freedom. Because when we actually really look at it at its core, when we are embarrassed about something, or we feel shameful about something of the past, or we're scared that people call us out onto a decision we've made, or something we've said, or something that happened how many years ago, or even if you have shame, like it's so interesting that this is like popping in for me, even if you have shame over like your bank account or like the numbers in your bank, or if you have a credit card and you have shame over the numbers there, like there are different areas where we can apply this to, right? Where we feel shame and we feel a sense of embarrassment. In those areas, you will naturally try and dim your light or overcompensate to try and take away that feeling of shame, to try and take away that like feeling of like, what if I am in this place and I feel very vulnerable and something happens and someone says something or does something and I don't know how to cope. I don't know how to show up in this space. Like those are very like real lived examples, right? And so it's important to realize that when we have an inability, and I'll speak about why this inability comes up for us, when we have an inability to fully just claim what we bring to the table and be like, you know what, like, yes, I may have made this decision. I may have recklessly spent my money in the past. I may have accumulated all this debt. I may have XXXXX, whatever you may have done. But to come to a place of acceptance, to be like, I know that I've done the best that I could, given the resources I had at the time. And that to me is more than enough. You suddenly step into such a different level of embodiment where you suddenly find that you become, and I say this in the best way possible, but you become untouchable. Untouchable in the sense of you're no longer trying to wade off people's like comments or fears or trying, like, I'm literally picturing like like you have like this beautiful armor and like these rocks are being thrown at you and you're just like pew, 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 and you can just like push them away. Like you suddenly develop like such a beautiful like golden circle of protection because there's no longer this feeling of vulnerability or shame or what if someone brings something up that I haven't dealt with yet. And so when we're able to fully own what we bring to the table, and I speak about this concept often in like my programs and with my clients, and we really sit with this, it's like when we can have full ownership over what we bring to the table, it also breeds great momentum. Because what's one of the biggest things that keeps you from stopping and like prevents you from reaching your goals? Feeling shame, regret, resentment, doubt, confusion, and guilt over things that happened in the past, over decisions you've made, things that maybe didn't work out, whether it's relationships, whether it was job opportunities, whatever it was, whether it was decisions that you made that you realized didn't work in alignment that you thought it would, and there was a divine lesson for you to learn. Like there's all these layers, right? But when we are able to come to terms with the path that we have walked, and we come to terms with the fact that who you are right now as a woman, like, is really who you are in this present moment. It's not who you were a year ago or last week or yesterday. It's who you are right now. That's the defining factor. And you can really only change the energy of your reality when you come to terms with yourself and you no longer feel the need to have to hold on to things of the past as if they've suddenly become these gremlins on your back that you just have to carry all the time. Because that's really hard. Like, how are you going to walk up a mountain or go through a challenge or go for a run or do whatever you need to do to get to your goals and to create this dream life and to heal from things of the past if you keep carrying these gremlins on your back? And these gremlins are on your back because you're not fully owning what you bring to the table. Like when I can sit in a space, and I'm thinking of this like metaphorically right now, if I can sit in a space right now and actually come to terms and be like, yeah, like there were times in my 20s where I look back and I'm like, girl, you just like, you were so reckless with your money, like so reckless with your money. Like money respect and money relationship was not there. I can be like, cool, like I'm okay with that because it's not who I am today. To be like, oh, there were times like in your younger self where you were pretty promiscuous. Like you were out there. And I understand why. I understand the wounded element of it. So I understand why it existed. But at that same time, to be like, okay, cool, but that was who I was. It's not me now. And that's okay. And I share my story. And this was so interesting because when I was doing the butterfly effect masterclass, I was really speaking openly about certain things in my story. And there were two things I shared in that masterclass that I haven't shared anywhere online or publicly ever before, which is quite interesting because my throat went like, oh, and my voice was like all croaky and breaky. And I was like, this is interesting. You're speaking your truth and hear your voice, your throat center wants like block up. And I was like, no, 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 we're going to say this. Like people need to hear this. But when I shared those things, it was actually, in a sense, for me, really easy to share because I was like, I don't hold any shame around this. I have done a lot of the inner work. I've really gone deep into forgiving myself. I've done the inner work in terms of forgiving the people that were involved. And I was able to see the situation for what it is, to now come to terms and be like, this happened. And I will share my story, because I know when I am able to share, it not only inspires others to share so too, but I'm allowing myself to be a voice for those who have been silenced. And so really knowing that this, like being in this place only really came from owning what I brought to the table, of no longer feeling like any shame or guilt or anything, any low frequency vibration at all, because it's like, I understand why these things happened, or not perhaps why they happened, but why I acted the way I did. That's a better way for me to put it. Like, I understand why I acted the way I did in these certain situations. I can see like the thought processes behind my decisions. I can like really just let go of like the things of the past, like, and actually just be like, cool, like I'm not holding on to anger and resentment for people that did things to me or that I experienced. I was like, I'm letting that go out of my field. Feels very freeing to say that out loud too. And being able to let that go really brought me down to a place of, cool, now I can fully own what I bring to the table. Because even if I had to sit at a table with those people that I had my past experiences with that were really traumatizing and weren't great, I would actually be very composed within myself. Like, as who I am right now as a woman, I would sit there completely calm and be like, yeah, it was really fucked up what happened, but cool. And having this state and this state of calmness really comes from a place of, one, having full ownership of what you bring to the table, two, being able to forgive and release the things of the past and come to terms with it. I mean, like, you know what happened, but to carry these trolleys with me, like, it's not going to help me. At the end of the day, it's only like hindering you and keeping you further away from your goals and keeping you further away from who you want to become. If anything, it's just acting as a distraction that's keeping you stuck in this constant loop that you're finding yourself in. And I was like, and I have peace with my life. Like, I'm here, I'm now. What a wonderful time to be alive. And so when you're able to find that sense of grounding within yourself, and you're able to find that sense of stability within yourself, and no longer feel that you have to hold on to things of the past as a justification or as a fuel or a measure or as your reason why I'm doing this. Like, imagine funny enough, like my marriage is coming as an example. Imagine like I was like, as I am right now with like my husband, imagine I fueled our relationship with the thought of, I need to show all those narcissistic assholes that I was with in the past that, like, you know what, like, look at me now. Like, there's someone treating me better. I found love. Like, just imagine that was the attitude when I'm just like, okay. Like, those experiences being with you guys taught me how to love the hell out of this man and appreciate him and really see what like a depth of love could be. But those experiences also showed me who I was at my core, because it was in those experiences that I found strength that, now looking back at it, it's weird. Like, I'm even getting a little bit emotional just thinking of like a few of my experiences that I had in the past. I'm like going through those extensively abusive experiences. I'm like, it showed me a lot of strength. It showed me what I'm willing to do for myself. And I'm like, cool, like, thank you. I'm done. And it's so freeing, because then you suddenly realize that life doesn't become this. My guides are literally like this hoarding process. And I'm like, well, that's very interesting to say hoarding process, but it's true. Like, it's interesting to see and watch this in the people around you. Like, how often have you seen like older people, anyone that's older than you, whatever that age may be, and it feels like, and it just looks like the life has been tapped out of them. Like, they are just done. Like, there's nothing, and you're just sitting there and you're like, what happened? Like, as a kid, you didn't really like, this wasn't the vibe. Like, what happened? And it's because we have this tendency as human beings to carry our things with us. We have this tendency to carry our things with us. And I think this is in a positive way and a negative way, whether it's like achievements that we've had in the past. How many people hold on to achievements of the past? I used to do this with my bodybuilding space. I held onto that so much that that's how my body looked. And I was like sponsored by GNC and like a Brazilian clothing company, and they would like fly clothes in for me. And I was doing photo shoots and look at these competitions I won. And like I held onto that so much. And yet it's like it's 6 years later. It's 6 years later, right? How crazy is this? It's 6 years later. And now, finally, in year six, I'm at this place where I'm like, cool, like that was how I used to look. That's how I used to be. It's not me anymore. That's not my life anymore. Like my priorities are different. My life is different. Like that's a completely different version of me. I'm very proud of her, but I have no desire to go back. But for so long, I held onto that achievement as if it still defined me, which made me feel, no, it made me feel like pretty, I want to say the word that comes through to me is out of integrity, but in a sense of, I always felt like I was split into multiple identities, where I was like, I am who I am today, which is a very spiritually soulful person, which is not who I was back then, at least to the extent that I am now. And I'm very like self-aware and all these things, which I'm like, that was not the case back then. But now I'm trying to fit like this allness of who I am as a woman right now back into a skin of that person, and that version of me was triggered, traumatized, and tantruming all the time. And she didn't know how to navigate it. And she didn't even know she was all those things. And so that actually always made me feel like I could never move forward in my goals in life because I was constantly looking back at who I was and what I achieved, as opposed to being like, no, you're a completely new, different woman now. Your achievements are different. The way you achieve will be different. Like it's a completely different ball game now, right? And how often do we not do this in like our own capacities, like where we find that we keep defining ourselves through things that we did in the past, the achievements of the past. And then we feel like we have to be that person and we have to do that thing again in order to move forward in life, or so we can experience success. I think this happens like very often in like entrepreneurship too. Like where you may have made a lot of money in your entrepreneurial journey, gone through a phase, because we know in entrepreneurship, like money ebbs and flows until you've integrated and learned all your lessons to hold space for that expansion. And so you may have had a stage where you maybe had an incredible launch, or you had a really high cash month, or all these things just happened, right? But then suddenly, like, there's a new season that comes in, and maybe you're not experiencing the same flow as you did in your launches in the past, or your income looks different because you're in a different season. But yet you keep holding on to these things of the past because you're like, well, that's where I used to be. Why am I not there now? That's where I used to be. Why am I not there now? How are you ever going to move forward, my love? Like you're constantly looking back. You're trying to fit yourself into a mold of a box that you don't even fit the box anymore. Like the box is old. Like, no, we don't do that. Mm. And so when we're able to have full ownership of what we bring to the table, it's that sense of, yeah, this is my experiences that I went through. This is the success I've had. These are the failures I've had. That's all of me. I hold no more shame around those things. I have no more guilt around my decisions. Like the amount of money work I really had to put in this year, which was quite interesting for me, was quite immense. And it really came from a place of like, I am so proud for all the decisions I've made in my entrepreneurial journey, for all the investments I've made, whether they worked out or not. We've all been there. For the time I was in like my reckless money era, even before like my business years, when I would just like, money would come in and I would be like, oh, I'm the queen of the world. And I would just buy useless shits and throw money away and all these things. To be able to just come with terms, to be like, and I did come with terms to it and be like, I don't hold any more guilt. I don't hold shame around those experiences at all. Like, it's really a case of like, I am so proud of me because she gave herself so many experiences. I put myself into so many conversations. I really can say with throughout all my investments and everything, even my entrepreneurial journey and all the certifications and all that stuff I did, I was like, that really built a wealth of knowledge. Even though I can see like sometimes with the fact that I felt like I had to do every certification and get like my knowledge every single place, like even though I know that came one side of that was like my love for learning and curiosity, I'll always learn. But one part of it was like a wounded part of me that felt like she had to prove herself and be fucking good at everything to be accepted. Now imagine I held on to like that wounded part and I held on to any of the guilt and shame and like all the lower energies it may have brought with it. How how dilapidating would that be? Like that would literally paralyze anyone from moving forward because you'll constantly then feed yourself with these beliefs of I'm not good enough, of I can't do this, of doubt, of taking yourself away from your internal power. That's not the vibe. That's not where we want to go. And so when we're able to own what we bring to the table, it becomes freeing because you look back at these experiences and you can see them for what they are. You can see the good, the bad, the negative, the positive, the light, the dark. You can see all the things. But in seeing all the things, you can also hold yourself with so much compassion and be like, you know what? I'm not that woman. I've learned those lessons. And this is what I bring to the table. This is who I am. And when you come from that sense of fully owning who you are and what you bring to the table, you become unstoppable because you're no longer holding this imaginary bag from the past of feeling like it has to kind of, that this has to be like your heaviness that you're carrying with you. Even though I felt like gross to like pull my back in that way. Like you don't have to carry this heaviness with you. You can actually just be as you are, come as you are, be as you may. And then it becomes very freeing because then you're like, ooh, what do I want to create now? Who do I want to be right now? How do I want to show up? Suddenly, all those things become so beautiful, and the world opens up for you, and you realize that there truly is limitless and endless possibility because you're like, damn, I don't need to subscribe to holding on to the things of the past, whether it was my achievements or whether it was things that I actually like, I'm not very proud of. I am who I am right now. And so I invite you, my love, to see where can you own more of your shit. Own it. Work through it. That ownership is going to mean releasing shame, guilt, resentment, anger, like all these low vibrational frequencies. They need to leave so that you can come to a state of wholeness, of clarity, of consciousness, of alignment, and create from that element of I'm not here to prove, I'm not here to fix, I'm not here to make up for lost time. Like, no, I am here right now, and this is all that matters. Know that, my loves, I will catch you for another episode. I'm sending you so much love. Bye for now.